Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Europe is Coming podcast. And we are live for the first time. We're giving this a bit of a go to see how this works out. My name is Adam, host of the Europe is Coming podcast. And as ever, I'm joined by John Singleton. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, it's an exciting moment in 2026 to be live. When we first spoke, I was like, okay, we'll just do audio only. And you convinced me to enter the video world.
Yeah, well, we were kind of recording video, so I've kind of got all this video stored on my hard drive, and I was like, why don't we just post the video and see how it goes? So yeah, we are foraying into our first live on YouTube. So hopefully you enjoy this and the content gets out there and people watch it. So please give us feedback. As ever, we'll put the email address in the description for this. So please just send us some emails and let us know your thoughts and anything you'd like to see from us or talk about. But last time I spoke to you, you were in, was it Norway?
Yeah, I was in Norway just over the Christmas break. Jacqueline's from Norway, so we tend to go back most years. Just see our family, and it was nice. You know, it's nice getting that real winter experience.
Yeah, it's different in Scandinavia to other parts of the world.
Yeah, and the darkness, it feels like the more winter in the films, you know. It's dark and snowy.
Yeah, and last podcast we got to talk all about Velites and how they started, and a really interesting podcast episode with Mateus. I really enjoyed that one, as you can probably tell if you've listened to it. So I thought it was a fascinating story and some really interesting tidbits we got out of that. And I just saw a notification today that they are going to be the apparel company for the games this year again, which is exciting.
Yeah, he's a big thing for them, and I agree. I kind of felt that conversation could have doubled the time. There was, you know, they're a brand that's really risen from straight in the space. They started selling like self-made jump ropes, and now multiple time sponsor of the games. It's like it's a big rise, and also, you know, it's a Spanish company, European company, so there's a lot of ties in that way. It was a nice story to be able to tell.
Absolutely, yeah. And Mateus, super nice guy, and just really open and honest with his story and what's going on with Velites. It was a great conversation. So where do you want to start today? We're going to do some like 2026 sort of predictions and thoughts. Obviously, there's quite a lot of noise around the space at the moment. We're kind of in this weird little lull where we're waiting for the Open and Wodapalooza to start from WFP and Rogue. So we're kind of in a bit of a quiet moment for the functional fitness space at the moment.
Yeah, it's probably a weird. This space was always filled by Wodapalooza. Everyone was heading out to Miami at this time of year. It was a big focus. This was kind of the time before the Open, when everyone would get together and meet up. And so I think having this gap where Dubai also didn't happen this year, but that was kind of filled up with the WFP finals. So it does feel like a bit of an extended gap, and that's also adding with all the other uncertainty. You know, the sale of CrossFit, WFP games, all those things are. I think whenever there's a quiet time in the space, it allows more speculation to occur.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw this, but there was forgetting the names, but the rumored sale of CrossFit. There were two guys who were talking about buying it, and they recently pulled out. One of them because they submitted their plan apparently, and he got quite a lot of backlash from the CrossFit community. But then the other of the two partners has recently bought into, I think it's 24 Hour Fitness or something. So that seems to be off the table now, and there's no sale. The sale rumors have died down again a little bit after that.
Yeah, so I just had a cat walking across the screen, sure. Which is probably why we never went live before.
So I think people are quite generally pretty animal friendly in the fitness space, from my experience. Dogs and cats welcome.
Yeah, so he's a friendly cat, but sometimes needs attention.
Just wanted to make an appearance.
Yeah, true. The first cat on the podcast.
First cat, yeah. We'll try and get more animals on over the coming episodes. So yeah, the sale of CrossFit the rumors seem to have died down a bit after that very public bid kind of got quashed, and I'm not really sure what the sale of CrossFit is. So, from a 2026 preview, I guess the first question is: do you think CrossFit will sell this year? And if not, what do you think will happen to the brand and business?
I had this prediction a little while back where Castro's always said that he'd wanted to do this 20 years of the games. And this is the 20th year. They're going back to California. And I just think that there's so much pointing in that direction that ultimately, I don't think before the games it will sell. I mean, this is like, I have no idea. It's just a hunch. And then maybe after the games, I mean, maybe they're also hoping a successful games, they can kind of generate some better numbers, and then the sale looks more attractive to a potential buyer. So, if I had to predict, and this is full guesswork, I would say in the latter half of the year, maybe pushing towards November, December time.
It would seem weird and maybe not the best move to kind of sell during the season, during the Open or the games. It'd be quite destabilizing, kind of trying to sell a business during those times and have new leadership and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like now we haven't sold before the 2025 ended. It's probably going to be pushed back, you'd assume, right?
Yeah, I would assume, but you kind of learn to expect the unexpected. So maybe next week CrossFit sold and CrossFit sold, new season structure comes out. But yeah, I think it's a strange one because they've obviously announced that they want to sell and they're looking for buyers. It's not that it's not a rumor. It's just public statement that's come out regarding that, and I think it does create quite a lot of uncertainty around that.
And so, what do you think about the Open? What predictions do you have for that? Obviously, we know it's going to be 3 weeks, and we have a announcement in Europe, and then there's one on an airfield, and then there's one at Wodapalooza. So we've got the 3 announcements coming up. It kicks off towards the end of February, so we've not got super long to wait. Any predictions around what you think the Open's going to bring this year?
Oof. I don't think there'd be any like crazy surprise. There's always some programming twist or whatever that may be. But I think it's nice to. One of the nice things is there's an Open announcement in Europe, so we'll be going across. I mean, as we spoke on to Mateus about going to the announcement. I think that'd be fun. It's always nice to do something within the European community. And then also them collaborating with Wodapalooza. It's the first time it's been done at they've had Open announcements before at competitions, but not in the way where presumably the athletes will do it as part of the test and go through. So I think that's quite a cool extension. And then the Open's always served as a bit of a public litmus test for how well CrossFit is doing. Everyone tracks the number of signups throughout the years, and I think it was 2013 or so. Well, anyway, but over the years, you kind of seen this steady growth. I think it peaked in around 2018, dropped down. They kind of did this weird thing where they had 2 Opens in 1 year that affected the numbers. And then we've seen this dip, but slight steady rise, but not to the same point of where it was. And I think this year will be interesting to see are the things that CrossFit doing helping the growth of the Open again. There's obviously been a lot of de-affiliation over the years, and does that have an impact? So yeah, I think there's kind of those 2 things. I think there's excitement for some new things happening in the Open. It's always a good time for the community. Is that reflected in the ultimate number of participants?
I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that was on my mind. I've heard some chatter on some other outlets around the Open and sign up numbers. Obviously, well, not obviously, but one of the things that was reported last year was that we were quite down on sign up numbers. It was up after. There have been some kind of ups and downs, peaks and troughs, but last year did seem to be a big down. Obviously, after the games and certain other things happening within the space that I think a lot of people kind of moved away from wanting to do the Open last year. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on where you think the community is a little bit in terms of how they see the Open and how it's evolved over the years. Because when I first started, the Open was kind of like this awesome chance for me to get involved with people at my gym, do a throwdown, test myself, and it was just like Friday Night Lights and a load of fun. But I feel like now there is more chance than ever to go and do some kind of fitness with your friends that's not in your gym and a Friday Night Lights feel that isn't even necessarily CrossFit. So I think how maybe people view the Open has changed from people like myself and you have been quite involved in CrossFit and especially you from the competitive side compared to like your average day CrossFit who just goes because they want to be a bit fitter and they haven't got a clue who even the professional names in the sport are, or even that there is a professional competition. I still feel like everyone has kind of shifted their view and expectation on what the Open is.
Yeah, this is I think an interesting difference in the Open is that, really it's not an online qualifier. Like all the online qualifiers that you get to semifinals, wherever it is these days, like typically athletes don't like doing them. There's a lot of complexities around it, getting to these next stages. But really what the Open was a huge number of events all happening at an in-person affiliate at the same time. There just so happened to be this associated leaderboard. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the fun and excitement wasn't necessarily seeing where you're placing on the leaderboard, unless you're looking to go to the next stages, which only a small percentage of people are. But it was really just about going with, throwing down with your friend. It had a bit more of a focus than just the class because something you may be trained for. And so I think it really, the success of the Open and that feeling of the Open is, obviously what CrossFit does helps to promote and create that general image is very important. But it comes down to the box owner and how motivated they are in order to run this. Because anyone who's been through the Opens, and especially when it was 5 weeks, like running the whole of the Friday, the coach would be there. They wouldn't know the workout. So if it was a big setup or not a big setup, it's like a lot of work for the gym owners and the coaches. And then you had loads of athletes that want to redo, or people that couldn't make it on the Friday, so they want to do it on the Saturday. And I think for the members, it's a really fun experience because it gives you that test of fitness each year. But a lot of burden is placed on the gym owner. And it's like, is there actually a way for CrossFit to keep incentivizing the gym owners to keep doing that?
Yeah, I think you raised a really good point about it being quite an important online qualifier now. And I hadn't really registered this until you mentioned that. When I first started CrossFit, kind of, 2013, 2014 sort of time, 2015, in around there. I didn't even know really that it was an online qualifier. I kind of did eventually, but that wasn't why I was going or doing it or the focus. I kind of didn't really understand that. Whereas now I think there's quite a lot of and again, maybe it's just because I'm more into the space now, but it feels like it's equal a online qualifier as it is a inbox throwdown. Even maybe more so for some people. Like you say, now with quarterfinals, there's more people that want to try and get through, or are looking at it more as a competitive light rather than just I want to do this really hard workout with a bunch of people of an evening. And on the box owner, I think I've seen more and more the more I've moved around gyms and seen different gyms do the Open, that there's a lot of people who just do the workout in class or with their friends in open gym and don't pay the $25 or $20, whatever it is now, and just do the workout anyway. And I don't think that there's a real incentive for gyms to be like, actually, no, let's really try and drive the numbers for the gym. It's like, well, we can still do our own thing, make it fun, make it a great thing for our members, but why are we and I heard someone else talk about this, push someone else's product effectively. It's like the gyms are like the storefront for CrossFit's product, which is the Open, but there's no real incentive for them to promote it outside of wanting CrossFit to do well at the moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like should the open registrations money go back to the gym owner, or at least some of it? There's like a shared revenue scheme to financially incentivize the gym owners to get people to sign up as well. I think it's a good idea. It's I think it could really create a win-win from both sides. It's great for gyms to be doing events. It can set the gyms apart from a lot of the Globo gyms, etc. And so doing this, like some kind of shared revenue system, is maybe a great idea for both sides.
Yeah, definitely.
They've kind of now started associate. This is another interesting thing that happened is doing a shared revenue scheme, but really with the prize money for the games athletes. So now the prize money at the games is dictated by how many people sign up to the Open.
Yeah, which is, I appreciate on one hand, but again, I think there's a huge amount of the CrossFit community, or even functional fitness, will be broader now, because I think there's a lot of people who go to CrossFit gyms who don't even do CrossFit. They're doing like High Rocks or something, some other type of programming. But there's a lot of members of gyms that will participate in the Open that aren't necessarily attached to the games. And actually, if you had maybe this kind of revenue incentive, it's like, oh, you can support your gym by coming and doing this thing. We can put it back into the pot, means we can get new equipment, or we can do something with it. And it kind of feels like you saw this during COVID. I saw so many gym members like carry on their membership and do loads of stuff because they wanted to keep the gym going. And I think people do have that kind of affinity to their space and wanting it to do well.
Well, when I was muted, I just said you'd be very impressed, but I was muted when I said that. But I've managed to do something quite technical. And I found whilst having a conversation, found the graphic. I think you can share it on the screen though, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the Open registration numbers over the years. So obviously it's crazy to think how few people did it in 2011. It's probably why I placed so high. It got worse every year. But yeah, then there was this peak in 2018. I think this is why everyone talks, when people kind of talk about the peak of CrossFit, is because of this graph as well. There's a lot of hype, everything going around. It's getting up closing in on 500,000 people doing the Open, which was just phenomenal. The High Rocks numbers are kind of blowing out the water, but still having this many people compete in one thing was huge. And I think this actual first drop was the year when they changed the dates of the Open and kind of had 2 in 1 year. Then obviously COVID hit, and since COVID, it's been a pretty dramatic decrease. Actually, you're in that 2020 year, you're kind of closing in on 60% or something of that, and it's slowly going back up. It'll be interesting. I think 24 again increased slightly on 23. Maybe 25 increases again. It may be interesting to see if we can get past the peak from 2018.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it does continue growing. It is kind of, and I think this is it's really interesting you pull this up. This pays into a little bit of why people felt it was so special and really, really got involved in it. Because, 2012 to sort of 2014, 2015, it was just on this steady growth. And it was just like, we had this kind of, it felt like, when you find a band or something, or a really cool venue or somewhere, a cool niche thing that you feel like's yours. And it kind of kept growing and growing and growing. And then the 2018 games was like massive. And then for those that aren't familiar with the CrossFit history, or maybe a bit newer to sport, kind of start in the later years, this is when a lot of the media team and the CrossFit Games, a lot of CrossFit started to kind of have its internal problems. And Greg sort of changed his focus away from the games to more the strange videos. I will just say the strange videos that I don't know if they're still on the internet now, but it was I think good intent, but kind of sort of more senior population lifting kind of water jugs in a living room set, which was quite odd. It just kind of felt a bit weird all of a sudden. And then COVID happened, and there were some tweets and all sorts of stuff, and it just paid into the fact that, like you say, COVID happened as well, and it all kind of happened at the same time, and we just saw a massive decline in the Open. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes. Are you planning to do the Open this year?
Yeah, I think so. I have not been doing as much classic CrossFit. Actually, I enter a new age category.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'd be in the 40 to 45.
Join me in the 40 to 45. Sadly, I've been in it for a few years, so yeah, my elbows and knees definitely feel like I'm in the 40 to 45 category.
Yeah. So that will be. It's always funny when you bump. You realize how fit people are, even though they get older.
Yeah, I see the Masters at the games and what those guys do in the 40 to 45 category, I'm like, oh no, I can't use age as an excuse. So, the Open. Any other predictions? We've obviously got a competitive season. We've got. I don't know if the WFP have fully announced it, but I know that it's sort of been unofficially announced by people. The 3 stops.
Yeah, I think it got leaked. Like goes through.
Yeah.
I mean, I from the amount of sources it came from, I guess it's a pretty accurate leak. But they're going to have a three competition format. In theory, Mexico, Indianapolis, where it was held last year, and then Copenhagen again. I think it's risky, if I'm honest, because we're already. I think we spoke about this before, but we're already the 13th of January.
Mm-hmm.
The athletes have not known about it, so April's coming up. It's going to be hard for them to schedule and plan that competition. Also, if it's in Mexico, then also a lot of the athletes are planning to do the game season, and a competition in between that will obviously be hard. I don't know the dates for Indianapolis. But the trouble is, if you've not done the first one, it makes it very hard to achieve getting enough points for the last one. So if you miss one of the tours, accumulating enough points, I don't know if they're going to change their point system or however it may be, but there's certain nuances within that system that could maybe be optimized in order to make sure they can be successful in the future.
Yeah, it was interesting. Again, I was listening. This is third-hand information, but supposedly one of the event organizers at WFP were like, well, for us, it's almost like the end of the games would end sort of August, September time, and then they wouldn't announce anything towards the end of the year. Well, we've only just finished ours, and so therefore we, wouldn't really normally announce until a couple of months into the year, which I kind of understood, but at the same time, based on the conversation we had on our WFP wrap-up episode, I just feel like that's fine if you have a single event, but having 3 to not at the finals announce your new season when you've built all the hype and you've got all the attention and you've got all the eyeballs on you, even just to tease like, hey, these are the dates, or like placeholders, or some kind of information to like carry that momentum into the new season, just felt like a missed opportunity for them. And like you say, I think will be difficult to kind of maybe chain, if everyone's locked onto the game season to suddenly start prioritizing WFP or fit them both in might be challenging.
Yeah, and also because the prize money, although it's distributed quite well, it's not as like, you have Rogue that's out here at like 250,000 is basically more than the games. You got the games that's going up at 250,000. The hard thing with the game is it has a really, I think this year it like dropped like 200,000 or something crazy to second place, but still there's this like big peak prize. And I think the WFP is like around 80,000, which isn't at that level necessarily to draw people in. And you've got competitions. There's like one in Crucible in the UAE that's happening. I think it's like 50,000 for first place. So there's off-season Wodapalooza, maybe, it's been at the 75 mark or in and around there before. So there's off-season weekend competitions that can get up to a high level as well. So it's like, does it justify the athletes going through this 3 competition format in order to get there? And also, Mexico, especially for Europeans, it's a long way. It's a long travel. And if they're thinking about semi-finals, which will be at that time, or quarterfinals, also, okay, it's an easier travel for the US, but still it's an international flight during what is a pre-announced season. So if we're talking about predictions, I think it's going to be hard for them to get the top roster. I mean, when the first tour started, like everyone was there, and you could argue it was probably a harder, a more like a harder lineup than at the games. But as the season's gone on, that's definitely not become the case. So let's see if it follows that trend or they manage to reverse it.
I did seem to hear bits from athletes through different sources sort of saying we learned a lot from last year, we'll probably approach things slightly differently this year. I won't do quite as much volume, I'll pick and choose my competitions a bit more. Do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, I think so. I think that if an athlete has, let's say they go to Wodapalooza, then have quarterfinals, then have at least one semi-final if they manage, and that might turn into two if they don't secure their place. Then you've got the games, and then for the top 20 in the world, they'll be looking at Rogue. It's a pretty complete season. We've spoken about this many times. I think that I do think there's capacity for athletes to, be doing 6 to 8 competitions a year, but that's only if all the competitions are coordinated. That the volume is not too much, because you can't do 6 to 8 competitions at this 15 events, 12 events. It's just way too much. So the only way that a longer competition season structure would work is some form of coordination between everyone, and then accumulating points, whatever it is. Yeah, I think independently it's very hard to do, because you can't guarantee that the athletes won't be doing too much.
For sure. Shifting gear slightly, we talked about athletes. If you got any athletes this year you think we should be watching, that you think are going to have big years? Any names on the male and female side that we should keep an eye out for?
Well, I think the female top spot is going to be fascinating to watch. You've had Tia step away, or in theory step away with the pregnancy, at least for this year, or in theory for this year, I suppose.
Yeah, I know she's really good, and she bounced back really well last time. But I'm guessing that she's probably going to have a bit of a break.
Yeah. But you never know. I mean, she's pretty phenomenal. This, if we would say Tia's out, then that race for the top spots is fascinating. You've got Laura. Does she do the season or not? You've then got Gabby possibly coming back. You've got an Emma Lawson in there. You've got Lucy Campbell. You've got Amy Kringle. You've got lots of girls that could start to look at taking that top spot, but it's obviously not going to be an easy fight for them. On the guys' side, I think that's already happened. With Fraser stepping away, you're already seeing this. You've got I think the top 10 in the world are extremely good, and any given weekend, slightly change in programming, you could see it fluctuate between them, and we're starting to see that now on the girls' side. And it's unusual in our sport, because we went from Froning to Fraser. And then we went from, Tia basically held this title for so long. We've had these dominant athletes that have, accumulated decades of victories, and we haven't really had this constant changing of the fittest.
Absolutely, yeah. On the women's side, even before Tia, there was Katrin who won a double, and Annie who won a double, and there were a couple of female athletes in between who managed to get the odd one. But we've had a lot of repeat champions. And then on the men's side, as you mentioned, the two kind of greatest athletes on the male side, Matt and Rich, almost followed one another with a little bit of Ben Smith chucked in the middle for good measure. So I guess the on the men's side, the conversation is, are we going to get a repeat champion? Is James Spray going to repeat? Is going to win a second? Are we going to get Jeff Adler win another one, or Jason Hopper win another one? And then I'm sure Justin wants to try and get a third. So there's quite a lot of guys still in the field who have already won and want to win again. And then there's a couple of other upcoming men's athletes who potentially are gunning for their first one. So someone like Dallin Pepper, I'm sure, wants to knock on the door, and especially as all his buddies that he's on a podcast with have all got one each, and he's probably the odd one out at the moment. He's definitely doesn't want to be that guy for too much longer, I'm sure. And then on the women's side, it's super interesting. If Laura doesn't do it, then with Amy being and Lucy doing so well at the other events, it could be that we finally get another Brit on top of the podium, which would be super exciting for us.
Yeah, and I think it will come down to just programming. That the programming has to fall in place for the athletes in order to be able to clinch that victory. It's slightly heavier, slightly more conditioning. Those things will make a big difference in that pool. Maybe just rounding probably like the 10 guys, 5 girls who are all serious contenders for that.
Which is interesting because I would perhaps say that during Tia's time and during Matt's time, it sort of didn't really matter what the program was. Those two just seemed to win anyway. And now it is coming down more to the programming than maybe we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I don't think it's hard to just, for someone who didn't do CrossFit, trying to explain to them how good Tia is, how good Matt is, like to have not lost an in-person event throughout his career. It's just incredible.
It's a mad statistic.
With the variance of things that have happened, and also Tia. I mean, they're just so phenomenally good that she beat a Laura, a Rogue, and then another girl on a conditioning. It's just so good. I mean, just so good. And I think if it look at like Tia's just this phenom of an athlete's just so gifted, and Fraser was. I think Fraser's desire to win or to not lose is just. I think he was willing to put himself in some super dark places in order to secure that victory, which again is so impressive.
Absolutely. We've talked about some of the big hitters who are be in and around the games. It's probably a bit too early to predict who we think are going to win some of the big competitions. We'll maybe do that, but in the preview episodes before we get there. But have you got any sort of breakout athletes that we should keep an eye out? Maybe obviously from a European perspective, especially, but people you think will be in competitions that maybe some of the listeners haven't heard of before that we'll maybe get a glimpse of this year?
I think there's a couple of young athletes who are kind of starting to come in, especially from Europe. I mean, you've got this Lucy McGonigal from Ireland. She's obviously doing very well and can continue to do that. She's kind of in I would say this next generation of new athletes. You've got like Olivia there, Lucy. You've also got an Icelandic girl called Bergros, extremely good in all the young age. I believe they're all like 18, 19 years old. And then on the guys' side, you've got Ty Jenkins, who, again, he's been on the main stage. And just with the age, the natural trajectory is they get better. Unless something happens along the way, ultimately, with that age in their late teens, they're going to kind of continue improving. So it'll be really interesting to watch. And I think it'd be like there'd be pretty safe predictions that they're going to continue to climb higher on the leaderboard.
Yeah, really exciting. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we just seem to have every year sort of new breakout 18, 19-year-olds sort of on the regular now coming into the sport, which seemed a bit of a rarity when I first got into it. It seemed like you kind of a bit older because people found CrossFit a bit later and it was a bit more of a hobby, and then they just seemed to be good and they ended up becoming one of the top athletes. And it was, you had the odd Noah Olsen and Ben Smith who had been doing it from a young age, but now it seems like regular, like every year there's a new in the Open, quarterfinals, games, some of the in-person competitions, we're seeing younger and younger athletes sort of emerging, like Lucy kind of breaking onto the scene last year with Tia and into the games, and I think it was her rookie year last year if I'm correct. So yeah, it just seems to be a regular occurrence. I'm sure this year at the games we're gonna have some more rookies to keep an eye out.
Yeah.
So we talked before we came on air that about there seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment where American companies are acquiring some sort of European companies. There seems to be a bit of a shake-up in the CrossFit scene with companies acquiring others. And there was the recent one where Brute bought. Remind me their name. I've forgotten it. Just off the top of my head now.
Yeah, it was Team Training. I don't know. I don't think they brought Team Training, but they kind of merged the kind of faces of Team Training with Fraser, Will, and then also the athletes, most notably Amy, and they also had Daniel in there. He won't mind me putting him second in that in that change, but we spoke about, and we've seen it before in the past. Like it was interesting because you've always had within CrossFit like athletes changing camps or athletes going to camps, and there was a time when even training programs would be paying athletes to join, and some of the amounts were like, you were hearing we've seen some of the contracts that athletes had to join some of the bigger camps, and like bonuses for doing well at competitions and big bonuses, which just incentivized this athlete movement around. And we even saw it. There's actually a Spanish program, not at the levels of some of the American programs that they pay, but, would pay an athlete to come on board. And so we saw that happening with athletes. And then later on in that transition, we also started to see it with kind of coaching program. Hard Work Pays Off ended up taking Steve from JST on board. Mm-hmm. We've had a few other ones happen. I mean, I think one of the Hard Work Pays Off then also took on Underdogs, and now more recently, or they didn't necessarily take on Underdogs, but at least take the coach from Underdogs. Proven did that before, which I think really hurt the Underdogs business by taking Kiefer on and a few of the athletes with that. So it's like you had this movement of not just the athletes, but also the coaches, this kind of whole package going. And that was a bit of a change. I know for me, the whole podcast is named Europe is Coming. So I always find it super sad when European talent leaves Europe. And it's a bit of the case of that now with Team Training. You've got Amy and Yoel being associated with an American brand. They're obviously doing super well. I mean, Amy's had an amazing season. What Fraser and Will had managed to build was also super cool. So, I understand the incentives behind it, but I must admit it's always sad to see it go to go that way, really.
Yeah. What do you think's driving that? Is it bandwidth? Is it trying to help the athletes develop further? Is it just, being able to have other people to bounce ideas off and grow themselves? Like, what do you think drives that?
I think it's because the sport is very US centric.
Mm.
And one of the reasons I would imagine Tia moved to the States for a period of her career was for sponsorships, because it would have probably been a lot harder for her to pick up sponsorships if she were in Australia. I think it's just, a lot of the big competitions happen in the US. Obviously the games has always been there. You have a lot of the open announcements have always happened there. So you get a lot more visibility by being in the States. Classically brands, US athletes tend to make more than European athletes with brand deals. And I think then that a lot of the media that especially, it's changed a bit now, but especially in the peak era we're talking about, a lot of the media used to be Road to the Games, all that stuff used to be focused around US athletes. And so I think there becomes this aspirational thing, like everyone looks to the US for that direction, even though, I mean, Europe's just been so dominant on a CrossFit side, especially on a female perspective. I mean, we've had male winners with Mikko Salo back in the day. I mean, it's pushing the CrossFit history there. But, BKG standing on the podium and honestly, one of our biggest contenders was Lazar. He was just like his rising star. Like every games he'd been to, been in the top 10. However, even though we have all this European talent, it's homegrown talent with homegrown European coaches. Unfortunately, I think because of it being US centric, a lot of people move there. And in a hypothesis would be if it was more European focused, actually that shift might start to happen. If the games were brought to, say, we would have the games in Europe for 5 years, I wonder if that would then start to change that whole dynamic. Or you could argue the same, not just Europe, but you put that thing in that same concept to Latin America, where you host the games in Latin America for 5 years. That actually helps the athletes there, etc. And you see the same thing there. I mean, Guy was just like this phenom. I remember speaking to some of the broadcast team, and like when Guy's at the games or not at the games, like you get like noticeable changes in viewership just because he's there. I mean, he basically brings the whole of Brazil to watch the CrossFit Games, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is mad. And I mean, that's kind of what athletes do for you, right? Like they enable you to reach new audiences, but also competitions. Like on a slightly bigger scale, the Olympics. I remember when the Olympics came to London, and the cycling literally went through where I live, and everyone around here now cycles. Like there's so many cyclists, and that's still off that ripple effect of. I mean, we've always had quite a lot of cyclists in Surrey. Surrey Hills is quite famous for cycling, especially mountain biking. But after the Olympics, the amount of people that were cycling was crazy, and it still is. Like it's not died down. Every year, I swear, there's more. And that was by having a competition on our doorstep that with some English athletes who were doing really well, were winning medals. We did amazing in the cycling in that Olympics. So I think having sports in your country that people can go to inspire people to take it up, and it would help drive CrossFit in what is still, from what I understand and what I'm aware of by looking at the turnouts at competition, still growing. Like we've talked about it, and I think a lot of CrossFit media has talked about the fact that some of the competitions in the States, the crowds aren't that big, and they're not as well attended as they used to be, considering the population that they have. Versus you come to Europe, and the WFP stopped at Oslo recently. Like all of the broadcast media all commented how good the crowd was, how full it was, how everyone seemed to just love it. And I'm sure more people, that was their first in-person competition, and they're more excited to train. They probably went straight to the gym the next day or a couple of days later, and were like amped to train because they had watched all the top athletes throw down. So those ripple effects are really important for where you go and building the sport everywhere else, I think. Do you feel that maybe that's slightly at odds then with the fact that we are obviously seeing more competitions with WFP and Row coming to Europe, and more athletes that actually sort of athletes moving it, we kind of need more competitions, more training camps, and more athletes from here to kind of build it? Like, how do you feel? I know you kind of shared some thoughts, but do you think that we'll end up having newer camps kind of pop up? Because this isn't the first time this has happened, I guess.
It's not the first time it's happened, and I think that I think for it to be like a change, it has to be a big shift. It's not like Europe's not been good at developing that talent. It's done it very well. So there has to be like this added incentive for the athletes to stay, and not necessarily have this big desire to move to the US. And I think that desire actually starts from the media, from where the competition's held, all of those things. I would say that it needs like something big, like the games being in Europe for multiple years, for that kind of shift to start to occur.
Got you. Well, I hope they do really well. I'm obviously biased being British, but always enjoy seeing Amy like compete, and I hope those guys do really well. And the Brute team seem to be doing very well at competitions at the moment as well. So all
it's
the
true.
top guys
I
at the
think
moment seem to be smashing it.
I think if you look at the the big training programs, they're definitely pushing up there. You've got the big three, who it's no coincidence that they're kind of founded by the three athletes we've mentioned with Froning, Fraser, and Toomey. But yeah, Brute have been it's been very impressive to watch the athletes they have aboard and the success that they're having with them.
Yeah, and Brute go way back as well. Like people think they're kind of a relatively new training camp, but they go way back in origins of CrossFit. Like
yeah, with Brookends, but with under different ownership. I think that's another interesting thing, that it's kind of it was an older training program that moved away and then got revamped into what it is now.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned, I just wanted to kind of give Mikko Salo a bit more props. For those that don't know, if you haven't been in CrossFit very long, obviously, I again, because I've worked at Nokia, I have quite an affinity to the Finns, and yeah. If you've ever done Kalsu or Mikko's Triangle, you will, yeah. I think that tells you everything you need to know about Mikko Salo from an athlete perspective. Just those two workouts, especially Kalsu.
Some of the actually, it's quite fun to go back and watch when Savan did the documentaries with Mikko, like Sisu is a great one to watch, and also some of the open announcements where he went to Finland to follow. Those are like really good documentaries, and I actually think they're quite fun to watch back. You go back, if people listening, you've got like an evening, want to watch a documentary, Sisu, all the old open announcements that Savan did, and it's fascinating to see how far the sport has come in terms of like technique and training philosophies, but they're still really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I just have flashbacks to doing Kalsu once. A guy at our gym was like, we should do this. We were doing Christmas workouts and we got to pick a hero workout every day. It was a really bad idea. And I remember doing Kalsu, and it's one of the only workouts I'm like, I don't think I ever really want to do that again. Took a bit of my soul that day. So yeah, pretty gnarly workout that he came up with. Okay, we are quickly running out of time for this episode. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Wodapalooza and what you think are the next few kind of update weeks, and how the season's going to kick off effectively. John, what do you think we're going to be treated to in the next couple of months?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a pause, to be honest. I think WFP are going to announce their season. It'll be interesting to see the reaction to that, but probably we're not going to know the real reaction until people show up. And I think unless CrossFit gets sold next week, it's going to be a bit of a waiting game till the first open announcements kicks off and the season gets underway.
Yeah, so we're in a bit of a quiet moment, so definitely want time to kind of get your training in, get prepared for the open, get ready, and I'm sure that hype train will start sooner rather than later, and we'll be back to talk about the open and Wodapalooza and all those things, and share news of any CrossFit sale or anything we hear, and break that down as well.
I'm definitely sure we'll find something to talk about next week.
Absolutely. And from the program point of view, have we got anything for the year that we want to tease now, or anything that's upcoming that we're going to be talking about?
A huge announcement that probably should have mentioned is we're going to be programming Mad Fitness Festival, which is a big honor for us. We've programmed like lots of competitions over the years, but the first time that we're programming a semi-final. So that's like a big moment for us, something we're obviously taking very seriously, but very cool to be involved in that.
That's excellent news and really exciting, especially as I know how passionate you are about the competitive programming. It's going to be really cool to see. So I'm on a personal level really excited for that, and obviously we'll talk about what we can when we can around that, and look forward to doing our review of that.
The qualifiers starting on the 19th, but they'll be for the elite categories. But they have a community division as well. It's a really fun location. Like if you can get down to Ciudad Real, it's a great event. Coming in Spain, good time of year to be in Spain. So sign up. It's also fun to be able to compete on the same floor as the elite athletes. So if you're kind of thinking of coming down, want to put a competition into your diary, it's definitely a good option.
Amazing. We will we'll keep you posted on that as well once it is all online and ready to go. When sign-ups, do you know when they're going live? Yeah, John. Or...
Yeah, I think community divisions are live, and then well, you can sign up for the qualify now, but the first workout gets released on the 19th, so next Monday.
Perfect. Okay, so I will, in the links in the description, I'll make sure we've got the link to that, so you can sign up just by clicking on that link. Amazing, very exciting. And if you are looking for a training program for this year, obviously head to the program website, sign up. There is a refreshed website you'll be greeted with, and you can sign up for the training program there. John follows it, and yeah, it's excellent. So jump on that, and if you haven't already, follow the program on Instagram. And you can jump into the weekly mash. That is one of my favorite workouts for the weekend. If you wanna do a fun one with your gym buddies, the mash is always a good time as well. Awesome. Well, this is our first live. We'll see how it goes. I'll post this through our audio platforms as always. So if you are listening to this on our audio feed, then keep your eyes peeled on YouTube for future lives. And please do let us know your feedback, comments, and email in. Again, I'll put the email address in all of the description, so you can send them straight to our inbox. Any questions you have, any topics you'd like us to discuss, or any feedback you have on the pod are all welcome. John, do you have anything else to close us out with for this week?
No, just I'll see you guys all next week.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great week.